welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia and I am your host and wedding photographer based in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. Today on the podcast I'm chatting with the lovely Emily. She is based down in Taranaki and is a wedding celebrant and wedding coordinator. She is also a recent bride herself, so we chat through her whole love story and wedding planning process, all the highlights, what was hard, why they decided to have a first look and a more lounge style reception rather than a sit down dinner. We then talk about the wedding vendor side of things, how she got into being a coordinator and a celebrant, what the process looks like working with her for your day, and why this is such an important vendor, in my opinion, to have. We chat through writing your own vows and the whole ceremony experience, timelines and what is really important to include in them, and why booking in time to stop and be present on your day is really key. I always say it, but I know you guys love these ones, a combination of bride and vendor, getting those both perspectives, and there's so much helpful advice in this one. You're going to love Emily, so let's get straight into it. Enjoy episode 45 with Emily. Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I know that everyone loves these episodes when I talk to someone who's a recent bride and also a wedding vendor. So good to have both perspectives. So really excited to chat to you today.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks so much for having me.
So good. So we will talk about your wedding a little bit to start off with. If you could just tell me a little bit about you and your partner, how you guys met and your life together.
Yeah, so me and my partner, we actually met at CrossFit. So we go to the same CrossFit gym. And I was a newbie going into class and I met him and I actually remember shaking hands with him, which was a very formal way to meet your husband. And from there we just became friends. We were, working out together, that kind of friendly banter. You could probably say like he was my gym crush. And for about 5 months we were just friendly, and then we went out on our first date, which was really nice. We just did a beach walk with his 2 dogs, and things got very deep quite quickly. It was one of those conversations that, we laid everything out on the table, big life chats, our values, everything like that. And we found that they just aligned. And I just knew pretty much from the start that he was my person, which was really nice. The only spanner in the works was I had actually booked a one-way flight to move to Sydney. But needless to say, I didn't end up doing that. And now we're married and we have 2 little boys. So it all worked out really well in the end.
I love that gym crush turned husband story. So good.
Yeah.
So you were together for a while, and then can you tell me a bit about the proposal story?
Yeah, so we were over in Fiji, and I think it was one of those things, I knew it was coming, but I didn't know when it was going to happen. And when you're away on like a romantic holiday, you don't want that expectation that it's gonna happen then. So I remember waking up on the first morning and I gave myself like a little pep talk saying, don't get upset if it doesn't happen on the trip. Like, it's all good. And so I kind of put it out of my mind, and I thought there was no way he would do it on the first day anyway. And we were sitting at breakfast discussing what we were going to do for the day. And he was really adamant that he wanted to go paddleboarding. But he wanted to go tandem paddleboarding, which I thought was so bizarre because we've done it before. And I was like, why do we have to go together? Like, I could just have my own one. And he was like, no, it'd be really cool if we go together on the same board. I was thinking, okay. So I kind of just rolled with that. And it was our plan. We went down to the water at the resort. But actually all the paddleboards were out at that time. And I was happy to wait. But he was very like, no, let's go do something else. I think looking back now, you can sort of always see those signs when the guy's acting a little bit strange. But of course, at the time, I'm like, no, okay, it's been a bit weird, but it's fine. And we discovered where we were staying, there was like a little bit of like a island across from where we were. And we realized we could get across to that by walking across a bit of a sand spit. So that was our new plan. We were going to go and sort of have our little private beach date. And so we went across, and the water was only up to about our knees at this point. I had a bag with me with like our phones, our Kindles, foods, all of that, just carrying it, and that was fine. And so when we got across to the other side, I wanted to relax on the beach and just enjoy the sun, but he was very insistent that we get in the water straight away. And again, obviously, I'm still not thinking anything's going to happen at this point. We're about to go swimming. So we got in the water, and after a few moments, he said to me, let's dive under the water at the same time. And here I'm thinking, what is going on? You're being so weird. All these little things you want to do that is just out of character. And I was like, okay. So we went 3, 2, 1, dived under the water. And as I popped up, like, I'm quite a short person, and he was the same height as me. And thought that was a bit odd, but I realized at that point he was actually kneeling down on one knee. And he'd somehow managed to get the ring out of his like broad short pockets while he was underwater. And yeah, he just had this ring there, and he said he completely panicked. He forgot his whole speech of what he wanted to say, and he just sort of mumbled out my name and will you marry me? And yeah, it was just such a sweet moment because it was very unexpected that it was going to happen in the middle of like the Fijian Ocean. So yeah, that's how it all went down. And it was so nice to be away on holiday and just getting to celebrate that moment, just us. We did tell like friends and family that day, and no one was really surprised that it had happened. But yeah, we went out for a nice dinner and just got to enjoy our holiday. And I'm really happy that it happened on the first day. I think I still would have been kind of expecting it, even though I'd given myself that pep talk. So I was really thankful he did do it on the first day, and I wasn't sort of waking up every morning kind of thinking, oh, maybe it's happening today. Yeah, so he did well. He did well not to lose the ring in the water. It was a risky move, but yeah, that paid off.
So good. I love it. In the ocean proposal. And yeah, it sounds like he nailed it in the end. It's so
Yeah.
funny when, yeah, people reflect back on that and looking at all the like weird little things they do. So
Yeah,
yeah, love
it's
hearing
so
that.
obvious, but yeah.
And had you always been one of those girls that dreamed about what your wedding would look like? Did you have a specific vision and vibe in mind? And yeah, what were those kind of first steps with finding a venue, all of that?
Yeah. No, I really hadn't thought too much around the actual wedding. Um, I knew I wanted to go somewhere by the beach because that was something that was important to me and important to us. We spent a lot of time at the beach. So, yeah, I hadn't thought a lot about it apart from that. And yeah, initially we ended up actually booking a wedding in Fiji. And that's where we were going to get married. But we were one of those COVID couples that was affected by all of that. So, yeah, our final venue actually wasn't at the beach at all. So I didn't have a vision. It just sort of once we started the process, we started thinking about what we wanted and just went from there.
Oh, a bit of a change of plans then. That's always a bit stressful, but
Yeah.
what were yeah, like the most important elements of the day for you, your sort of top priorities?
So for us, it was mainly around having good drink, good food, and then just having the people we love there. So those were our priorities, and everything else was just kind of like an extra bonus. So during the process of planning, like I guess our little motto was, as long as we get married, everything else is a nice bonus. And we definitely knew food and drink were a top priority. And in terms of looking for vendors, making sure that we provided, I guess, like the best of the best for our guests. And yeah, everything else was just sort of like a nice add on, I think. And we sort of just went with what was true to us and what we wanted versus what we thought or everyone else wanted us to do.
Yeah, nice. It's a great frame of mind to plan from.
Yeah.
And can you tell me a bit about your wedding outfits, your dress? What was that process like, finding it or getting it made?
Yeah, so there's a couple of local shops here in New Plymouth, and I went along to one of them with like my bridesmaids and my mum to try on dresses. I actually had it in my mind that I was gonna like order it online somewhere or maybe go overseas, but I wanted to initially try on to see what did fit me, what style suited me. And it's funny, I went in with a complete vision of what I thought I wanted. I wanted something that was kind of like low cut at the back, and maybe low cut the front as well, but definitely the low cut back. And what I ended up coming out with in terms of a dress was completely different. And I think that a lot of brides can probably relate to that. You go in with one vision, but it's so important to try those dresses on, because what you think you want might not actually suit your body type, or you might fall in love with something completely different. And I think it was the third dress that I tried on. Yeah, and I was just like, this is the one. And all my bridesmaids were like, yeah, that's the one. It was one of those perfect fitting dresses too. Like in the shop, it actually, the dress, I know when you try on dresses, there are certain sizes, you have to get them altered normally, but like everything just fit me perfectly. And it ended up being a high back, which is quite funny, very different from what I wanted. So the whole back was kind of like a see-through lace, and then the lace kind of continued around the side, and then it had like kind of like lacy front as well, and it was quite like a tight fitting mermaid style dress. I knew I wanted all lace, so at least I got that part of my vision correct. And something that I didn't foresee was there's two colors that you can have with your dresses. Well, these ones did. You can have, think it's gonna probably get this color wrong, but like the real ivory, porcelain kind of white. Or you can get, mine was like more of an oyster color, I guess, like more of a blush color underneath. So you can have two different versions for this dress. And I'd always envisioned having the real white standard wedding dress, but yeah, the one that I chose had more of a like lighter blushy oyster champagne. I don't know if I'm getting my colors wrong, but it wasn't like the traditional white, but it definitely suited the style of the dress with the lace. And yeah, like it was just an easy choice, and I was really stoked with that. And then in terms of my bridesmaids dresses, I just let them choose what they wanted, what they felt comfortable in. I wasn't bothered by color, I wasn't bothered by style. I figured, they need to be comfortable. Maybe if it's a dress that they could wear again, then I was happy for them just to choose. So yeah, my bridesmaids chose what they wore, which yeah, worked out really well.
Sounds so beautiful, and good that that was an easy, enjoyable process in the end.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, who was in your bridal party, and did you find that an easy process choosing them?
Yeah, I think it was a fairly easy process. My maid of honor, well, matron of honor, was my sister because she was married. And that was easy because I was her maid of honor at her wedding. So that was always going to be a no-brainer to have her. And then I just went with my three best friends. And I think when you're choosing bridesmaids, you sort of have to look at who's been there for you and who do you think you can foresee in your future. That was really important for me when picking who I was going to choose. Like there was other close friends that I could have included, but narrowing it down to like my friends who I've been friends with the longest, as well as one of my other friends who lived in Auckland, that was always, like my biggest supporter. It was those three. And with my husband choosing groomsmen, he had a similar story. He had his twin brother as his best man, and then his three closest friends. And so, yeah, it was a pretty easy, straightforward process, I found. I know that's not always the case, so I felt really lucky to sort of kind of know who was going to be in my bridal party.
Yeah, nice. That's so good. And how about the guest list? Did you find that a difficult process narrowing them down? And I don't know if you had any COVID restrictions when planning at that time, but yeah, how did that
Yeah.
go?
Yeah. So we, like I said, with COVID, we obviously scratched the Fiji plan, and we did have some restrictions around numbers. So we had to have under 100. But we had a fairly smallish guest list anyway. I think we were sitting around 70 in total. And initially we did find it quite hard. As one of those things, you start writing down everyone you'd like to invite. And then that list gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you talk to like your parents and they'll like, want to invite their family friends. But we made a decision pretty early on that we were only going to invite immediate family and aunties and uncles, because if we then included cousins on both sides, that was going to be already kind of half the guest list. So we had a blanket rule, no cousins, and that cut out quite a few people. We did have some restrictions around who could actually come, because we got married during the second lockdown when Auckland was still in that big 3-month lockdown, and we had quite a few guests. I lived in Auckland for 5 years, so I had a lot of friends up there. And the borders were still closed, so that cut off some international guests. So I think naturally our guest list kind of was culled for us in a way, which, I mean, it was sad that those people couldn't be there, but it also made it like it a bit easier on the number side of things. Yeah, and again, we just used that same philosophy when we were choosing our wedding party around who has been in our lives for a long time, who do we hang out with, and who do we see still being in our lives, in the future. And if it's people that you haven't even met before or like a partner, then we were quite ruthless with just kind of saying, well, no, and cutting those people out. Yeah, I think that really worked for us.
Yeah, nice. Sounds like it was a good number in the end. It's annoying when it's a bit out of your control, but yeah, is what it is. It was a rough
Yeah.
time for weddings for sure.
Yeah, it was.
And yeah, can you tell us a bit about the big day, how it all went down, and yeah, any highlights or favorite moments?
Yeah, so we got married in some really beautiful gardens here, and something that we decided to do was have a first look, which I know is a little bit controversial. You either love or hate a first look, and for me, that was definitely like probably the highlight of my whole day was doing the first look. So yeah, we obviously got ready in the morning, all of us girls, and then the guys were getting ready together. And then we all went to the gardens, to the venue, and the wedding party all met at like there's a little pavilion sort of area. So they went on and had like food and drinks, and all just kind of like gathered together. And I remember, so everyone left me, like I was kind of waiting for the queue for me to walk in, and the photographer went on ahead to make sure that like my partner was all in position and everything. And that was the first time the whole day that I'd sort of had a moment to myself. And so I think that's why it was such a highlight for me was I got to actually stop and pause and take it all in and just be like, oh my goodness, I'm about to marry like my person. This is so amazing. And I just felt so grateful. And that really set the tone of like the rest of the day for me to go in with that mindset. Yeah, and we had our first look, and that was really cool. The photos of us are just like crinkly eyed, like wide smiles. Like it was just so special to look back on that moment. And then we all gathered with our bridal party, did photos, had some food and drink, which was really nice. And it just sort of relaxed us into the day. And then we had our ceremony, which was really beautiful. It was a really, really hot day, though. I do feel sorry for the guests because we all got to stand in the shade, but they were in the sun. So, yeah, that's something that you always look back on and think, oh, and we didn't have umbrellas or anything at the ceremony. So we feel bad for our guests for that one. Sorry. Yeah, and then because we'd done our first look, we just rolled straight into like our cocktail hour. Which what we decided to do, we like I said, cut our wedding right back. So instead of having a sit down reception, we just went for a really extended cocktail garden party sort of vibe. And that's what we did. We had like lots of tables and chairs and umbrellas and picnic blankets, and sort of just made it like a really fun, like casual, relaxed seating area. We had lawn games. We hired one of those like drinks caravans. So we had cocktails rolling. It was really fun. We both chose a cocktail each, which was really cool. Yeah, and the vendors we hired for that, they were amazing. They're a personality. They're more than bar staff. And so that was really important for us, was to have people who were going to kind of bring this awesome vibe to the day. In terms of food, we just did really big bites and substantial sort of canapes and grazing platter. It was kind of like rolling food, always going. We did dessert as well. Yeah, and we still did speeches and everything. We didn't have like the traditional big reception though that everyone kind of, I guess, thinks you have to have when you're planning a wedding. But yeah, for us, like we're not massive party people. We're not really the white people that are going to be there at 1 o'clock on the dance floor still going. So to have something more casual, more relaxed, where we could sort of just sneak away when we wanted to was like actually really nice. And yeah, everything went off amazingly. We were so lucky that it was a really beautiful day, like I said, really hot and sunny, because we didn't really have we had a backup plan, but it was like a small pavilion that we could have had everything under, but it would have completely changed the whole wedding. And so I was really grateful for the good weather on the day.
So lucky. Sounds like an amazing day. It all worked out well. And yeah, I love that you had a bit more laid back, loungy style reception. I feel like that's such a great idea and cool for people to hear that yeah, you don't have to have a big sit down dinner if you want, or if you're not like dance floor kind of people. And yeah, it's still a really nice vibe to do it that way. And yeah, I love that you had a first look as well. It's definitely like not for everyone, but I think it's such a special moment to have just the two of you, and cool to have those photos. And yeah, definitely just like makes the day flow quite well, just not having to leave the guests for so long. So yeah, great tip as well. And yeah, was there anything that you found hard or really difficult about wedding planning, and yeah, anything you look back on and regret or would do a bit differently?
I don't think there's anything that like we would do differently. The planning process for us was difficult because of COVID, but in a way it actually made us reevaluate what we really wanted to do. So I saw that as a blessing. The only thing I guess that we found kind of hard is you don't really know what you don't know. And yeah, like no one really tells you much about what could go wrong, or things that you sort of need to be mindful of. Everyone always talks about the great, amazing moments of your wedding day. And so I think, not that anything did go wrong, but sort of knowing all the ins and outs of what could happen is always like a good thing to sort of be aware of before. But no, I don't say, there's definitely nothing we would change. Yeah, like I loved every moment of it. Oh, okay. If I did actually, just thinking now, there's one thing that I would do, I wouldn't change it, but if I had to do our wedding all over again, I would probably just maybe spend a bit more time looking at photos to recreate for our wedding. So we were very casual around that, and we trusted our photographer, and we got some really beautiful, really awesome photos that were like so in the moment. But I think now looking back, I might have maybe had a couple of photos we wanted to recreate. Just because now when I see weddings and I'm like, oh wow, that's obviously something they thought about doing, or yeah, that's the only thing that I would do differently. But it's not, it's such a small thing for me that it doesn't change anything about the day.
So good. It's definitely that hindsight thing a little bit, and you see more and more people's weddings, you're like, oh, that would have been cool to do. But yeah, no major regrets. So
No,
love that.
it's good.
And did you guys go on honeymoon straight away? What did planning that look like?
No, we didn't. And we actually still haven't officially gone on a honeymoon, I guess, because we kind of had like our Fiji pre-trip. And yeah, at the time of our wedding, we had our first son was quite little. So it was a bit trickier sort of planning, I guess, a honeymoon when you've already got a child. And we could have brought him along, but, you know, we've just spent all the money on our wedding. So sometimes there's not much left over for a honeymoon. Yeah, and we just kind of we had a night at a hotel, which was really nice to have that child free. Yeah, we always kind of joke that we still need to plan our honeymoon and do something, but for us it didn't really matter. We still had that wedding high for like the couple of weeks after the wedding, that it almost felt like everyday life was a honeymoon, as cheesy as it is. Yeah, but maybe one day we'll plan a trip and call it our honeymoon, our belated honeymoon.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, save it up for an excuse to go away or something.
Yeah.
And were there any like helpful websites or different resources that you used during the planning process, finding vendors, all of that?
I think the biggest resource for me was social media. So Instagram especially. I know everyone likes to look on there for inspiration. And yeah, I would just look through people's photos, things that people were tagged in, and see, what vendors, especially when picking vendors here, which ones were tagged in there, or using my own personal knowledge of vendors that I know. But also, yeah, just getting inspiration for styling and things like that off Instagram, I think, is probably one of the biggest resources that we've got. There's also really a great directory here full of vendors that you can get in touch with. So I use that a little bit as well. Yeah, but a lot of it is also just talking to people. So word of mouth, what people have done, my own wedding experiences, things like that, that was really helpful. Yeah, I wouldn't say there was like one particular thing apart from maybe Instagram that I used, definitely probably used the most. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, so good. And yeah, having that firsthand experience from people and then the tagged photos as well, so good. Yeah, do you have any advice for people planning their wedding at the moment, maybe from your perspective of being a bride?
I think the biggest piece of advice, and it's something that everyone goes on about, is to do what's true to you. But at the time when you're planning your wedding, that is so hard because you've got all these external factors and people sort of giving you their opinions. And a lot of that is, I think, comes from like your parents or grandparents. Let's be honest, it's always what they think they should do or what was done back in their day. But you really just have to stop and sit down and think, what are our priorities? Where are we going to spend the most money? And for us, it was, like I said, food and drink was our biggest priority. And we cut out lots of things that we didn't think we might need. We did all our own flowers, for example. We didn't have a wedding cake because that wasn't what we felt was us. And it's easier said than done. But yeah, really just stop and think, what is true to us? What do we actually want? What is our priority and where we're going to spend the most of our budget or most of our time putting into doing things ourselves? And also just enjoy it. Like, make sure you have moments throughout the day where you can stop, pause, and reflect on what's happening. Your wedding day really does go by so quickly. Everyone says that, but it is so true. And having a moment, whether it's together or whether it's alone, like I got to have that moment before my first look to just really take in and soak in what was happening. Yeah, I think that was really helpful. And I always say that to people now, is like, just stop and breathe and take it all in and enjoy.
Amazing. That's incredible advice for people. And yeah, it's funny how there's so many expectations and opinions that come out around weddings, especially from the older generation sometimes. But yeah, definitely trying to stay true to yourselves and put blockers on a little bit to that, which is
Yeah.
hard sometimes. But yeah, great
Yeah.
advice. And what is married life like now? Do you feel like you got any of those post wedding blues?
I don't think we got like major post wedding blues. I guess it's a little different when you do already have a child together and you're getting married. Your life doesn't really change. I mean, no one's life dramatically changes just because you have had a wedding, let's be honest. I think the only thing that really stood out for me was just that special part of being able to call him my husband, or, me being a wife. Like, I found that novelty really cool, and I still do. But yeah, life just kind of goes on as normal. The wedding's been and done. We didn't have a major wedding, post wedding come down, but it was definitely something that I missed. I missed the planning. I missed everything leading up to it, and I wished I could do it all over again. But yeah, married life is great. It's still very much the same as it was before, though.
Oh, so good. I guess it helps a little bit being involved in other people's days as well. So,
Yeah,
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 still
I get
kind
to
of
relive
in that.
it.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Is there anything else you want to add about your wedding and that whole experience, or we'll go on to chatting about your job after that?
No, nothing particular. Like I said, just enjoy it all, take it all in. Yeah, and if you feel like you're getting bogged down in the planning process, ask for help is always my biggest advice as well. In whatever shape or form that might look like, or if you can afford professional help as well. Like, you don't have to do it alone. I know lots of brides want to do it all alone and they think that they can't hand over control of anything, but definitely ask help, even if it's just advice from what people have done. Yeah, that definitely can take the stress away.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Amazing. So you have Married by Emily and you're a celebrant and wedding coordinator. Can you tell us, yeah, a bit about that, your sort of background, how you got started, the journey that's led you to where you are today?
Yeah, yeah. So I actually started the coordination side first before I became a celebrant. So previously to doing that, I used to work in a big corporate bank doing like events and sponsorship. And then I moved into doing like brand work as well. So I was sort of the person running the event on the day. So not necessarily doing the planning side, but being the person that would kind of get that handover and then just be the person in charge, working with all the other vendors, and just making sure everything was running smoothly on the day. And then when we had our first child, I sort of reevaluated what I wanted to do, and I saw a bit of a space in the market for wedding coordination, just through experience with helping a friend plan her wedding. Yeah, no one was really in charge on the day with timings and things like that. And I thought, well, maybe this is something I could do using my experience with events. Events and wedding is just a big event essentially. So yeah, that's how I started it all. In my first season, I booked 2 weddings, and I just remember being so stoked that I had 2 weddings. And from there, it's really just grown and grown, and people are starting to see like the value in having a wedding coordinator, which is so cool. Because I'm obviously biased, but I do believe that it can really help take away so much stress and anxiety for the couple on the day. And after my first season, that's when I also decided I wanted to become a celebrant. So I just remember standing at a wedding and watching the ceremony and thinking, like, I just want to be that person up there who gets to marry the couple, because it is just such a special, intimate moment. And getting to be the person that stands there next to you is just such an honor. So I went and got my Celebrant license, and now I do Celebrant and coordination, and I would say probably 90% of my couples I do both. So I'll be Celebrant, and then I'll switch into on the day coordination for like 3 or 4 hours afterwards, after the ceremony. And that works really well. I can sort of be that support person for the couple, guiding them through like the whole process.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's definitely 2 very complementary services that, yeah, cool to book the same person. And yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely a key vendor, especially that, I mean, both of them, you need a celebrant to get married,
Yeah.
but the coordination as well, so helpful, and just, yeah, really helps the day run a lot smoother. And I know as a vendor, all the other vendors appreciate that as well. Just having that point person on the day is so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, can you talk a little bit about the process that, yeah, couples go through when they book with you leading up to their wedding and then on the day, maybe for both services?
Yeah, so obviously it starts with an initial inquiry, and I like to make things pretty stress-free for my couples. I already know that planning a wedding is a very overwhelming life event. So upon initial contact, we'll sort of agree on what services they want. I'll suggest whether they need coordination or not based on like what kind of wedding they're having, what the type of wedding is. And from there, I normally have an initial like planning, catch up, meet and greet, all in one sort of meeting where we will go through all of their wedding plans, who they've booked so far, recommending who might suit their wedding style for the other vendors that they need. We'll start to work on their timeline, their wedding day timeline, and just have a general chat about their wedding ceremony as well. If they have me for Celebrant, then they will fill in an online questionnaire, and that just gathers a whole bunch of information around who they are as a couple, what type of ceremony they want, certain lines they want to say when they exchange rings, for example. And that's what I use to draft my ceremony script. And then from there, it's basically just like an unlimited amount of chats, catch ups, coffee dates, whatever the couple really needs to feel comfortable. So that is the biggest thing for me, is making sure the couple feel really confident and trust in me. So building a relationship is really key. I don't put a limit on how many like catch ups we can have. It's whatever they need to feel comfortable. And I'm always available over like Instagram, over message, always just checking in, offering a little tips and tricks along the way. And then leading up to the wedding day, if they have my coordination services, I build a like master event run sheet, I guess. So that has everything from your wedding day timeline, contacts for all the key vendors, an outline of what's happening. It has like site maps, floor plans for your seating chart, dietary requirements. Like it's just kind of like the event Bible in a way. So I'll create that with the couple, and then share it with all vendors so everybody's across the same page. And then on the day, obviously, I'm that person. If I'm a celebrant, I will turn up early, making sure everything's all ready to go, welcome guests, and then do the ceremony. And if I'm doing coordination, then I'm that key person who's there. I do set up sometimes, so often that's the ceremony area. It could be setting up the reception as well. But I'd say the bulk of my work for coordination kind of happens post ceremony. So that's making sure that all the timings are running smoothly, checking in with all the vendors, just prompting everything along, maybe moving decor, furniture, things like that, and just being that person that is there on site if there's any questions or anything that comes up. There's always something that we haven't thought of that happens, small, wouldn't say disasters, but like, there's always like little things that happen that I'm sort of that person putting out the fire before the couple even knows it's happened, problem solving, and generally just making sure things are running to time. And if they're not, like, that's okay, but being the one to communicate that, like, say to the caterers, for example, so that they're not serving up a dinner that's then going to be eaten cold half an hour later because we're running behind. So that's sort of my process. And like I said, I just want to make things as smooth as possible and as stress-free as possible for my couples. So I just want to make sure that they feel comfortable with me. They get to know me as a person. I get to know them really well, especially for the celebrant side, making sure that they feel like they're standing up there with an old friend who's marrying them. That's always my goal. So always available on all forms of communication, social media, just to be there like that support person for them leading up to the day.
I love that. You would be amazing to work with. I can, just tell you have a really
Oh,
nice
thanks.
presence and super, organized and a great background in running events and everything as well. So, it's just, I can't stress enough like how helpful it is to have that person and, not have to have your bridal party or your friends or family running around doing all those little bits for you. Just like, highly recommend outsourcing it. And like you say, there's always little fires, like not majors often, but the couple often doesn't even know about. So good to just have someone on that, and that's their focus. I love it. In terms of the ceremony side of things, do you recommend that people write their own vows? And do you kind of facilitate this with them if they want to do that and not show each other their vows before the day?
I definitely recommend that couples write their own vows. It's just such a personal moment that you can have in the ceremony. Like, all ceremonies should be personalized to you, but this is how you can kind of take it to that next level and make it extra special. Not everybody does want to write their own vows, and that is fine. I'll work with the couple to sort of come up with something they're happy to say to each other, or that I say and ask them as a question. But I do offer a lot of vow support because I know this is something that couples will stress over. Understandably, it is quite hard to articulate your love into words. So I give all my couples it's like a ceremony guide that has heaps of information about their ceremony, but it also has a lot of support with writing their own vows. It has tips and tricks on structure, how you could lay it out. It has a whole lot of one-liners that they can also borrow and steal. But the biggest thing for me is I get all my couples to send me their vows the week before, and then I'll do sort of like a sense check to make sure that they are the same quality, like similar lengths, and just offer any help that they need, whether it's putting it into the right structure and making sure they are similar. And if they're not, then I'll go back and just suggest a few things to either of them to make sure that they kind of come out on the same level, I guess, which is always the biggest worry, I think, for couples, is that one person's going to pull their heart out and the other's going to say like a couple of lines. So I'm that person that will be the checker to make sure so they don't have to show each other. But I think what's really good is to sort of sit down when you're writing your vows with each other and just agree on like a little bit of a structure, whether that's having a like story to start with and then going into your vows and your promises, and agreeing maybe like you're going to have 4 to 5 lines and then finishing off with a sentence or two. Maybe you want to have that sentence that you finish it to be the same that you both say. It doesn't have to be, but if you can kind of get a rough structure in mind that you both start writing your vows with, then it's definitely easier, especially when they come to me. I can often see that if a couple's done that. But getting your celebrant to definitely check over your vows is something that is like a non-negotiable in my opinion, just to take that stress away from you knowing that they are going to be similar on the day.
Amazing. That's great advice for people. And also, I've had a lot of people saying lately about that they're really nervous about the ceremony part of the day, or
Mm.
maybe they have social anxiety or a bit of a fear of public speaking and, yeah, saying these big declarations in front of so many people. And you've already, yeah, given some amazing advice. And I feel like your communication process and just making the couples feel comfortable is definitely key. But yeah, do you have any other tips around people that are feeling a bit nervous and how to stay calm and confident on the day?
Yeah, I definitely agree. That is like probably the number one worry that I get with couples is they don't want the spotlight on them. I don't know if that's a Kiwi thing that we don't love being the center of attention. Yeah, like I said, definitely building a relationship with my couples is important for me. So when you're choosing your celebrant, I think choose someone that makes you feel comfortable, that you trust. They are the professional. They should be guiding you through the whole ceremony process. And I also think it's important to remember your ceremony isn't like a rehearsed play. You haven't practiced it for months and months. So it is going to be raw. It's going to be emotional. And you just have to let that be. And if you think about it like that, then that sort of takes off that pressure of it being this perfect moment, and can sort of help the couples relax a little bit more. But there are definitely things you can do to take the spotlight off you, I think. Have your guests get involved in your ceremony so that it's not just about you, whether that's having them share a reading or doing like a guest vow that they say. Get them to stand up and do a bit of a game around who gets to be a witness. Like, make it fun as well. It doesn't have to be super serious. You can make it really relaxed and fun, but it can still be really beautiful. And I guarantee that your ceremony, no matter how relaxed you make it, will still be beautiful and emotional. But yeah, I think, like I said, number one is finding the right celebrant who's going to make you feel comfortable, that will guide you through everything so that you don't have to stress around remembering what you're going to say or where you're going to stand. Like, that's not your job. Your job is to just turn up and get married, in my opinion. So you don't have to have your vows memorized. They should be printed on card for you. When you're doing your ring exchange, again, your celebrant should be prompting you what to say. So there's nothing that you as a couple need to memorize. As long as you've got that right person there with you, that will really take a lot of your stress away, I think. And yeah, just enjoy it and make it fun. And if that's really not working, then just pretend that no one else is there and look at each other. That's what I say. Like, you don't need to look at all of your guests if you don't want to. Just look at each other, look at your person, and remember why you're there.
Yeah, that's such great advice. So key to just book someone that you trust from the get-go and feel comfortable around, and yeah, that's going to make things so much easier. But I love that advice. And yeah, do you have any other advice? You've already given so much, but from the coordinator celebrant perspective, that you would give to couples planning their wedding at the moment?
Yeah, like I said, in terms of planning my own wedding, like, ask for help and get people to come in and help you if you need to. And obviously, if you can afford to have a planner or a coordinator, having someone who's going to run things for you so you don't have to be stressing about anything at all on the day, like, that is valuable. That is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion, to pay someone to be there to manage that so you don't have to. I know that's not always in everyone's budget, which is understandable. I also think it's really important to take a moment somewhere in your wedding timeline for yourselves. So different ways I've seen this done. For example, obviously our first look is a way to sort of have a moment together before the ceremony. But I've also had quite a few couples lately who have walked back down the aisle and sort of just walked off and had a moment together before anyone comes in and congratulates them. And I think that's really beautiful. They've just taken a moment to reflect on what's just happened, have a private kiss, have that intimate moment before everybody comes in and sort of overpowers the moment, or even having a moment pre-reception where you go off and just have a drink or just have 5 minutes to just be together. Yeah, I think definitely booking in a little pocket of time for just you and your partner to just soak in the day is really important, and will also just help you slow down and take the whole day in so that it doesn't just go by super quickly and you're like, whoa, what even happened? Did we even talk to each other? Because there was so many people. I think that's something that I'm trying to get all of my couples to do now, is just book in that little 5 minutes into their timeline for each other.
Nice. That's such great advice. I love that. Being intentional with like everyone's like, just take a moment to stop, but actually like booking that into the timeline, having that in the run sheet. Yeah, like making it happen and yeah, just being present on the day. So good. I love those tips. Is there anything else around timeline, little tips that you have for people? Obviously, work with a coordinator if you can. They're going to help you lay that all out really well. But yeah, making sure you have that buffer time.
Yeah, having buffer time is super important. I think factoring in that things will probably take longer than you expect. As a typical guideline, I normally give 30 minutes for a ceremony, and then I wouldn't, for example, if you're doing group photos afterwards, I probably wouldn't put that into the timeline till at least like another 20 to 30 minutes later. I know sometimes you want to get done straight away, but that's not also always possible with people coming up and giving you your congratulations. So yeah, just maybe allowing a bit of extra time for things so that you're not rushed. And also because things will go over. So having extra time that you allow you to extend things if you want to. Like if you're enjoying yourself having a drink after the ceremony and you don't want to rush off straight away to do your photos, then you know you've got time because you've maybe pushed out dinner till 7, for example. You know, you're not rushed at all. I think those things are really important, and work with your vendors. So ask them questions as well. Like, for example, you know, use your photographer, use their knowledge around what they think for the timings. Like they don't need to create your timeline for you, but they will tell you a rough idea if you want to visit, say, 2 locations for photos, how long that will take so that you're not rushed and things like that. Yeah, and having somebody, if you can't afford to have a coordinator or anyone on the day, having someone who is a trusted family member or someone to have that timeline on them so that they know what's going on as well, someone who's going to be staying behind while you're off doing photos, so they know when to seat guests for reception, and communicating with your photographer or whatever if things are delayed, so that guests aren't being seated for reception and then it's another half an hour before the bridal party's even returned. I think, yeah, like expect that there might be delays in the timeline, or you might want to push things out a little bit, and that's okay, but just communicate that to your vendors, especially your caterers around dinner. Yeah, just work with everybody so that you're on the same page with the timeline, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's great advice. There's nothing worse than being rushed on a wedding day, and yeah, your vendors don't want to be rushing you, but there's certain things that like you are going to run out of daylight for photos, or the dinner has to be kind of like cooked in a certain time period.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have to be pushing stuff like that. So yeah, allowing that time and having that key person, so important. Amazing. Been so lovely to chat to you. Is there anything else you wanted to add as we wrap up?
No, not really. I think I'd probably just say though that the wedding planning process can be stressful. Obviously, I've been through both sides of it now, but I think find ways to make it fun, you know? So even if you sit down once a week with your partner and you make like a big evening of it, open a bottle of wine and turn it into something really fun. And if you are getting really stressed out, then definitely, yeah, ask for help and know that you don't have to do the whole thing alone. You can delegate, you can have people helping you, and it will still be your own wedding. You know, it's not like giving control to people and it's going to completely change what the outcome is. But yeah, you don't need to drown in the process alone. Ask for help, use people professionally or friends and family that can help you out to make things enjoyable. Like there's no point going through that whole process if it's something that's just miserable for you. Yeah, make it fun and enjoy it.
I love that. So good. Oh, people are going to love this episode. So much wisdom and amazing advice. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.